This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to lockdown coverage, week 4 in the National Football League. Denver Broncos taking their undefeated record on the road to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are in search of their first win since week 1 of the season. Some nasty weather in Tampa yet again. Remember, last week we had the delay for the Thunder and Lightning at the end of the ball game. Another delay at the end of this ball game. But this one was inconsequential, unlike the one last week where the game was still in balance. This game had already been decided by the time this delay took place. And we'll talk about this game and what transpired and where these teams are going from this end of this game and where they're heading into the future after this one as we break this game down. But before we get to any of those things, first and foremost, welcome to the Louie Tee Network. I, of course, am your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me on this program, and subscribe if you haven't already done so to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. Also, I'm on Twitter. @In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Go ahead, follow me, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network, follow me on Twitter, and if you're happening to watch this live feed while on Twitter, use the hashtag LouieTeeLive to let your voice be heard, whether you're on Twitter or you're in the YouTube discussion chat box. Use the hashtag LouieTeeLive if you want your comment read at the end of this breakdown. Also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Go ahead, give me that thumbs up and like that page as well. All of my social media platforms right above, scrolling by. So go ahead, make sure you subscribe, like, and follow. So that being said, let's jump into the breakdown of Buccaneers hosting the Broncos. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe. And this is the way I like to break down my games here on lockdown coverage. And so we'll get to the likes of the road team, that being the Denver Broncos, first in the first half. So let's get to the likes in the first half for the Denver Broncos. Aqib Talib, interception on the first possession of the game. The very next play after that interception, nice return by Aqib Talib on that interception. Very next play, DT88 in the end zone for a touchdown as Demaryius Thomas doesn't waste any time getting a delivery from Trevor Siemian and getting into the end zone, 7-0, just like that. Right out of the gate, Buccaneers turn it over, Broncos capitalize. And again, that's what the great teams do. Not the good teams, not the okay teams, not the mediocre teams. That's what the great teams do. They force a turnover and immediately capitalize off that turnover, and that's what the Broncos did. No hesitation. It's now 7-0 in this ball game. Aqib Talib with another interception in this game leads to another touchdown, and it's now 14-0. And if you're the Buccaneers, this was the worst possible start you could get off to in this ball game with turnovers. They've plagued this team all season long. In every game that they've lost this season, they've had turnovers that have hurt them. They had those turnovers over in Arizona in week 2. They had those turnovers again last week versus the Rams. They had turnovers in this game. All 3 losses for the Buccaneers. Forced fumble by TJ Ward, recovered by Wynn. So you got Charles Sims running the football. He gets tackled before he even knows what happens. But as he's still fighting to try to get back to the line of scrimmage, he's being held up by 2 Broncos. And then TJ Ward comes in and drops the hammer on him as he's trying to fight forward. Ball pops up into the air. It is then recovered by the Broncos. Another fatal mistake by this Buccaneers offense, and that would turn into a Broncos field goal to end the scoring for the Broncos in the first half. My final like is the field goal before the half with Paxton Lynch at quarterback. Trevor Siemian does get injured. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But all 17 Denver Broncos points in the first half off of Buccaneer turnovers. That is a recipe for disaster. If you want to lose football games, that is exactly the blueprint in how you lose ball games in this league. 3 turnovers, 17 points. And conversely, if you want to win in this league, that is how you do it. That is the blueprint for winning. Force turnovers, score points off of those turnovers, preferably touchdowns. They were able to get 2 touchdowns and a late field goal to end the first half. Broncos dominating the first half of this game with turnovers and points off of those turnovers. Let's get to the Buccaneers and their first half likes. Great response after the turnover and touchdown for the Broncos. Jameis Winston throws an interception on the very first possession of the game, picked off by L.A.B. It turns into a touchdown for the Broncos. The very next play on offense, he comes back, takes his team right down the field, caps the drive off with a rushing touchdown as he dives into the end zone to knock the game up at 7. You thought, okay, maybe there is some life in this Buccaneers football team. After all, that would be the last point scored of the game. We did not know that at the time, but that turned out to be the first and only touchdown of the game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hell, the only points for them in this ball game. They would not see the scoreboard again in this game. You go to the dislikes in the first half of both teams. Go back to Denver. Will Parks with a 3rd and 17 pass interference penalty. No need for it. The ball that he was right there in great position. All he had to do was play the ball. He might have even gotten a pick. It was not a great throw by Jameis Winston. He jumped all over the back of Mikey and picked up a pass interference penalty on 3rd and 17, making that even worse. All he had to do was play the football. That ball would not have been caught. Trevor Siemian injured, gets slung down on the play and lands directly on his shoulder. It's his non-throwing shoulder, his left shoulder. So that was a sigh of relief, but still had to leave the game. Was replaced by Paxton Lynch, who came in and showed why the Broncos traded up and spent a first-round pick on him. And as you will see in this game, throughout this game, he was very productive and showed that he's going to potentially, be the future at the quarterback position for the Denver Broncos. But Siemian does go down. Reports have been positive. MRI shows there's no structural damage or anything of the sort, and he's listed as week to week. So he essentially could play in week 5. Broncos aren't ruling it out right now, but they're not going to rush him back. And after seeing what they saw from Paxton Lynch, no need to rush him back. But you do have a big one coming up, if I'm not mistaken. I think you may have the Atlanta Falcons at home. That's a big one. Falcons playing some outstanding football right now. So if you can have Siemian, you want him out there. If not, you roll with Paxton Lynch and feel damn good about him taking the field. You go to the first half dislikes for the Buccaneers, and there are plenty of them to go around for everyone. Jameis Winston with the interception on the opening possession, talked about that already. Can't have that kind of mistake early in the game. You're looking for confidence. You're looking for a reason to believe you got a chance to beat the Super Bowl defending champions, and you come out and make a mistake like that on the opening possession of the game. That turns into points. 2 wasted timeouts for the Buccaneers in the first half. Hell, the first quarter, with 8 minutes left in the first quarter, the Buccaneers only had 1 timeout remaining. Again, I don't really care what you do with your first half timeouts. I hate to see them wasted, but hey, it's the first half. Knock yourself out. If you want to spend both of your timeouts, hell, all 3 of them in the first quarter, by all means, have at it. Just don't waste your second half timeouts. Jameis Winston throws his second interception to L.A.B. in the first half. That results in a touchdown offensively for the Broncos as they spin that field position into a touchdown. Again, more mistakes for a Buccaneers team that can't afford the mistakes. They have been plagued by these types of mistakes in their 3 losses this season. This game was no different. Pass interference on Conti in the end zone to give the Broncos great field position at the 1-yard line, obviously. And then McDougal followed that up with another pass interference penalty in the end zone, which gave them a fresh set of downs, which allowed the Broncos to get into the end zone on that second touchdown after the second L.A.B. interception. Charles Sims fumbles the football. I get it. You're fighting for yards. You get stood up literally in the backfield. Don't have a shot. That play was dead on arrival. You got to know when to say when. He didn't give up, and because of that, he takes the shot. Ball comes out. Broncos recover. Buccaneers were in a position to try to put some points on the scoreboard, although I don't trust Aguayo. they were in a position to try to get some points, and that ended that drive there. Brent Grimes and dropped interception late in the first half. We'll talk more about Brent Grimes in the second half, but had an opportunity to pick Paxton Lynch off before the Broncos ultimately had to settle for a field goal to end the first half. Look, you got an opportunity to pick a young rookie off, maybe start making him doubt himself, and you drop that interception. It results in the Broncos ultimately getting 3 points. Had a chance to take not only points off the scoreboard, but maybe rattle the young quarterback and make him make more mistakes as he starts to overthink some things potentially down the road in the ball game. Instead, you drop that pick, they get 3, no harm, no foul. He continues to play good football for the remainder of the game. That was an opportunity to really impact this game by Brent Grimes, and he dropped the interception. Let's get back to the Broncos and lights in the second half. The defense, they were dominant. They were swarming. After that second possession touchdown by the Buccaneers didn't see the light of day. A bunch of turnovers forced by this aggressive Broncos defense. They were harassing Jameis Winston all game long. Winston was not comfortable, nor should he have felt comfortable behind that offensive line. Broncos consistently. Derek Wolfe had to have at least 3 sacks in this game. Von Miller wasn't too far behind. They were pressuring. Shaq Barrett, was there as well. Shane Ray, they were all coming after Sylvester Williams gets a sack in this game. They were hounding Jameis Winston. He was under constant duress. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. This defense looked like the best defense in the league, and they're one of the best. They're up there with the Vikings, of course, but make no mistake about it, Vikings, Seahawks, Broncos are among the best in the league defensively, and you saw why here in this game. Broncos dominated this game defensively. Paxton Lynch is the last light on my list in the second half of this Broncos team to come in to this game, never having taken an NFL snap in a regular season game, and perform the way that he did. Calm, collected. They threw the football 24 times with Paxton Lynch. They were not afraid. As a matter of fact, his first 8 or 9 snaps, about 6 or 7 of them were passes. They weren't shy about having Paxton Lynch in the game. They let him cut it loose. He made some plays, drove them down the field. And the biggest thing is not the plays that he did make, but it's the ones that he didn't make. He didn't make any mistakes. He didn't turn the football over. And that's what you expect a rookie to do, turn it over. Well, the Buccaneers didn't generate any turnovers. He didn't make that critical mistake that could change the fortunes of this game for the Broncos. And that was probably the most impressive thing about Paxton Lynch in this game is he came in, he was calm, and he didn't make any mistakes. You go to the likes in the second half of the Buccaneers, there aren't any. They were horrible. They were abysmal. Use any adjective you like. That's what the Buccaneers were in the second half of this game. They didn't score a single point. They didn't come close to scoring a single point in the second half of this game. Defensively, they didn't do anything to change this game. They didn't get after Paxton Lynch. They didn't pressure him. They didn't stop him from moving the football down the field. They didn't force any turnovers. They didn't do anything to impact the game defensively. And so they went out quietly into the night in this football game. Let's get to the dislikes in the second half for this game. None for the Denver Broncos. They didn't do anything wrong in the second half. They kept doing what they had done all first half defensively, which is stymie the Bucs. Meanwhile, the offense continued to bleed clock, and Paxton Lynch came in and picked up where Trevor Siemian left off, which is moving the football down the field, orchestrating this offense without making any mistakes. Buccaneers second half dislikes. Chris Conte holding penalty extends a drive that would have been done and had to punt. And instead, it allows the Broncos to extend the possession with a new set of downs, and they ultimately get a field goal out of a drive that would have resulted in a punt. So Chris Conte had a rough go of it in this game. Winston under duress all game is my next dislike. I talked about it earlier, but got to elaborate on this. He didn't stand a chance behind the offensive line in this game. The Broncos were coming from all angles. The interior of the line was collapsing. The edges were being dominated. Von Miller getting up the field. Derek Wolfe killing them off the edge as well as in the interior. Sylvester Williams coming and collapsing the pocket. They were coming from everywhere. Shaq Barrett, Shane Ray, you name it. They were getting in the backfield. Jameis Winston was under constant pressure in this game At one point, they showed the total number of hurries, sacks, and hits, and he had been hurried off of 30 dropbacks. He had been hurried 19 times. He had been hit 11 and had been sacked 5 at the time of that graphic. He was totally molested in this game, and the front of that Buccaneers team has to be better. If you're going to have any success against teams like this that can get after the quarterback, you must protect your quarterback. They failed to do so in this ball game. And finally, the last dislike on my list is Brent Grimes. I thought he had a rough go of it in this game. Talked about the drop interception, gave up some big plays in this game, fell down a couple of times on some big plays, including the last touchdown of the game to E-Man Sand, where he runs a pivot route back to the outside and Brent Grimes just falls down. There's a play where Demaryius Thomas catches the football on an out route and gets up the field and gets a big gain on a play where Brent Grimes falls down. He just had a rough go of it. Brent Grimes has been very suspect this season for the Buccaneers, and at some point you need him to be better or else this team is going to struggle defensively. So that's this breakdown in a nutshell. No banana in the tailpipes necessary. This is who the Bucs are, I believe. I think they can be better once they get a semblance of a running game. You see why you paid all that money to your running back, because without Doug Martin right now, this team is struggling on the ground. There is no run game of which to speak of. You see what Charles Sims looks like when he gets extended touches at the running back position, and it's not pretty. I don't think he even eclipsed 30 yards rushing. Granted, this was the Denver Broncos defense. He's been struggling as the primary ball carrier. He's more of a third down spell type of back. He's not a guy that you're looking to feature as the lead back. He's a change of pace, third down type of back, and you've seen that in Doug Martin's absence. This team struggled in this game to protect. They struggled to run the football. All the onus is being put on Jameis Winston, and he's not handling it well with the turnovers. And I don't think there's enough help around him right now in terms of the supporting cast picking him up, making plays, the offensive line protecting him, the running backs doing their job in order for this Buccaneers team to succeed offensively. And defensively, they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been great either. They need to generate more turnovers. They didn't generate many turnovers last week versus the Los Angeles Rams, giving up 37 points in that ball game. They didn't generate any turnovers in this game, giving up 27 points to the Denver Broncos. They got to start generating turnovers if they want to help this offense out. It's tough to ask an offense to drive the football 80, 75, 70 yards consistently. Shorten the field for them by creating a turnover and giving them a shorter distance to have to drive the football for a field goal or a touchdown. It's just impossible to ask a team to consistently drive the football the length of the field without something going wrong. A penalty, a turnover, a batted ball, a drop ball, a miscommunication, something that can throw your drive off. They need shorter fields. This defense isn't creating enough turnovers. And right now, the Buccaneers are losing that battle in terms of turnover differential. You don't win that battle on most games, you're going to lose the football game. Buccaneers have seen that the last three, as they've been 0-3 in the last three ball games. So let's get to some of your comments here and see if we got anything on Twitter, as I just heard my Twitter go off. And no, nothing on Twitter right now. So let's get to your comments here in the discussion. And I thank you guys for tuning in and also chiming in with your comments. Make sure you use the hashtag #LouieTeeLive. Andrew Kim says, with Simeon with the shoulder injury, even if he comes back, could Lynch keep his job as the starter? I don't think they would prefer for Lynch to be the starter. I think they want Simeon in there. They're most confident in him. I think the offense moves a little bit better with Simeon in the game, and he's had more experience. So Simeon is the guy they want out there, but make no mistake about it. If Paxton Lynch has to go, they're more than comfortable sending the young rookie out there and allowing him to play. But if Simeon's ready, Simeon will go. That's the word out of Denver, and that's the word I believe in, and that's how I feel as well. Simeon gives them the best opportunity to win right now. Lynch, again, a whole year to sit and learn, and then he'll be Trevor Simeon next year this time. But right now, Simeon, a guy that's had a year to learn under Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler and watch this team win a Super Bowl That's the guy you want out there. That's the guy that's been performing. That's the guy that's helped you get out to this 4-0 start. That's the guy that's going to get his job back when he is indeed healthy. Gary Schopel says, not ready to believe Lynch is the guy. Saw some flashes, but need to see more. O-line needs to step up, though. I don't think you want to send Paxton Lynch out there yet. Not if you don't have to. Now, if it's optional, he's not out there. If it's not optional, then you put him out there and you allow him to continue to grow on the field. But got a big game coming up. If I'm not mistaken, the Falcons are next. Really don't want to put Lynch in that kind of game if you don't have to. But again, the Falcons don't generate a bunch of pass rush. Their defense isn't any good. So if you're going to put him out there, you should feel confident that you can score 24, 27, 30 points, which has been more than enough for this Broncos team this season to win ball games. Adidas or Addis Design Co. says, what are the Bucs' chances to win the next game if Cam Newton doesn't play? Been watching your channel for 2 years now, and it gets better every year. I mean, I appreciate that. But look, you know what's funny? If Cam doesn't play, and I think he will, but let's just go off the premise that he doesn't. Remember 2 years ago, the 2 games that Cam didn't play, they were both against the Buccaneers. And guess what? Derek Anderson went out and beat the Bucs both times. Now, I don't think that this Bucs team is that Bucs team because you didn't have Jameis Winston then. But I will say this, that Panthers team is good enough to win without Cam Newton against the Bucs. We've seen them do it before. So just because Cam may not be in there doesn't mean that, automatically Buccaneers are going to get a W. We've seen them rally behind Derek Anderson and beat this Buccaneers team twice in one season. So doesn't matter whether he plays or not. If you're the Buccaneers, you need to correct things on your own end. You can't even worry about what's going on with Carolina, who isn't or is going to play. There's enough issues to go around that Buccaneers team right now. Focus on getting better as a team. Don't worry about anything on the outside. Don't worry about anybody else in the division. Worry about yourself, because if you don't correct the mistakes in-house, you're not going to beat anybody. That includes a Cam Newton-less Carolina Panthers football team. A lot of struggles right now for this Buccaneers team. They got to clean their stuff up before they can worry about what anybody else has going on right now. Drift Rifter says, who do you think wins out next week? Broncos defense or Falcons offense? That is going to be one heck of a matchup. Right now, just looking at the way the two teams are constructed, the Broncos defense, to me, is just still lights out. And until someone proves otherwise, I just don't see anybody taking it to them, because they can cover with their corners down the field, but not only can they do that, they can get after the quarterback and make him uncomfortable, which Matt Ryan really hasn't been uncomfortable this year. And so if they can make Matt Ryan struggled for the last couple of years because he was uncomfortable. Hasn't been in that position this year. That's why he's flourished. If that Broncos defense is able to make him uncomfortable, you may see the Matt Ryan of the last 2 years that has struggled, and many have questioned. So we'll see. My thing is, does Julio Jones stay healthy, and can they protect? Because he's been dealing with a number of injuries. He was damn healthy last game versus the Panthers when he went for 12 catches and 300 yards. But if he can stay healthy and he can give anybody fits, I don't care who the corner is, he's going to win. Then it becomes a matter of how do you protect up front? Because you're not going to be able to run consistently against this Broncos defense. But can you protect up front? Can those 5 guys stop the Broncos from getting consistent pressure with just 4 up front? If they can do that, they'll have a shot offensively against this Denver Broncos defense. The key, though, keeping them off balance. Don't be too pass happy. Run the football with consistency. Keep them off balance. Stay in third and short situations, third and manageable down in distances. If you find yourself in third and long and they can pin their ears back, that's when you're going to find yourself getting into a little bit of trouble. But right now, if I had to pick, I'd go with the Broncos defense. They're going to be at home as well, so that's a little bit of an advantage as well in that football game. But do not count the Falcons offense out. This line is much improved with Alex Mack at center. If they can protect in that game, they've got a shot. Brian Ma says, do you prefer the Broncos D or the Vikings D? I prefer the Broncos D because they have elite pass rushers. They have guys that can get to the quarterback. We haven't even mentioned DeMarcus Ware, who's banged up right now. They're just shuffling in guys that can still get after the quarterback. Shaq Barrett and Shane Ray and Derek Wolfe. All of these guys are impactful pass rushers without even touching DeMarcus Ware, who's on the shelf right now. Whereas with the Vikings, their pass rushers are still coming of age. Danielle Hunter looks like he's legit, but he's still young and raw. Still got a ways to go. He's not Von Miller on that defensive line. They still got some guys. I think Brian Robinson can get after the quarterback sometimes, but they're to me a front seven that generates rush, whereas the Broncos can win one-on-one matchups. I think the Vikings blitz and they generate a pass rush, much like the Panthers. They generate a pass rush, not one guy that stands out that's going to scare you. Everson Griffin, of course, is a guy that is a threat, but I don't think he is on the level of a Von Miller. I think he's more on the level of a DeMarcus Ware. And so that's a B pass rusher, whereas they got a straight, legit A pass rusher in Von Miller. But I like Everson Griffin. I love what Danielle Hunter is evolving into, but they're not on the level of the Broncos yet. And as we know, the Broncos secondary is better than the Vikings secondary. So to me, I'll take the Broncos secondary, even though I love the Vikings linebackers. Their linebackers are better than the Broncos linebackers by far. So there are different layers to that question, but if I had to take it as a whole, I'm still taking a proven commodity in that Denver Broncos defense. So that's going to do it. There are no more comments. Thank you guys for chiming in on this video. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on Lockdown Coverage. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Broncos get the win 27-7. Go to 4-0 on the season. Got a big test coming up in Week 5 at home versus the Atlanta Falcons, who are playing red-hot football, especially on the offensive side of football. For the Buccaneers, they dropped to 1-3, and it's 3 straight losses. A lot of questions, not enough answers right now for the Buccaneers. We'll see if they're able to rebound next week versus the Carolina Panthers. That's going to do it for your man Louie T on Lockdown Coverage. I'll see you next time. Matter of fact, I'll be right back. I've got Rams. I've got Cards. I got that next. I'll see you in a bit. Have a good one.